afternoon, everyone. This edition of Beyond Your Comfort Zone, I am interviewing Jim Stith of Goodwill, Middle Georgia and Helms College. I'm so glad to have you here with us today, Jim.
It's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, Jim, I would love you to just briefly tell our listeners a little bit about Goodwill Middle Georgia, what the primary purpose is, and what you're trying to accomplish.
Sure. Goodwill of Middle Georgia is one of 157 autonomous Goodwills in North America. And we happen to have the territory assignment that goes from Macon to Aiken to help people earn the bacon. So we're about helping people to develop their God-given gifts, their skills, and to be able to move up in a career path so that they can obtain a living wage and a bigger slice of the American dream.
Now, Goodwill Middle Georgia has something that's a little bit different than a lot of the other Goodwills with Helms College. Can you tell us a little bit about Helms College and then its relation to Goodwill?
So Helms College is named in honor memory of Dr. Edgar J. Helms, who is the founder of Goodwill Industries. And he founded Goodwill in 1902 in Boston. And if you went back and looked at the operations in the first 10 years, it really was more set up like a trade school. So he worked in partnership with the business community and helped people to learn specific middle skills, a cobbler, a seamstress, a upholsterer, a watch repairman. And in a workshop next to his church, those skills were taught. And then all that product that was collected from the wealthier communities became tools to teach people to trade in these different workshops. The product that was produced then was sold in the first Goodwill store, and that store was a way that he was able to generate revenues, social enterprise revenues, to be able to pay people a paycheck so they could earn and learn, but also then he was able to open up new schools and new programs that help people develop more skills and more wraparound services. And so Helms College today is our effort at our local autonomous Goodwill to put together what are the high demand middle skills of 2025 and beyond. And so we have in our 2025 strategic plan basically 4 main schools that were growing programs that are licensed and accredited and federal financial aid eligible. And those are a school of hospitality, a school of health services, a school of trades, and we'll soon be opening next year a school of business and technology.
Excellent. I'm curious, what is a common myth about Goodwill that you would like to debunk for my audience? Because I know there's a lot of myths that are not really true about Goodwill.
Yeah, no, there's especially about this time of year in November or so, the Facebook and other social media get this post that says, decide what charity you want to donate to, and it lists all these different charities, and it lists Goodwill on the bad list. And it says that it's owned by a guy named Michael Curran, who makes $4 million a year. And so you shouldn't give to Goodwill, you should give to these other charities that it lists. And the reality is we're not owned by anybody except the community. Every Goodwill is a 501c3 autonomous entity that has a territory assignment. They have a volunteer board of directors that do get paid a pretty good lunch, but that's about it. And those volunteers are the governing board members that hire a president or a CEO of that local Goodwill, and that local Goodwill and that group basically put together a strategic plan for that organization. And that strategic plan, the CEO hires a team to actually implement that plan and to achieve the success measures of that plan. So that the reality is that Goodwill belongs to you in the local community. It doesn't belong to any individual.
So while Goodwill is run very much like a business to be effective and achieve its goals and accomplish, at the end of the day, it is still a nonprofit out there to help the community. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and in some ways, the fact that we're run with some very good business acumen and very good MBA type leaders that run most of these Goodwills around the country, has gotten in the way a little bit of us being looked at as a charity, and so we're a social enterprise that generates, revenues so that we can invest those revenues in mission and training, education initiatives and programs. And so, even our founder, Edgar Helms, came up with a phrase back in the 1920s, which has kind of hurt us a little bit, which is not charity, but a chance, that we're supposed to give people a hand up, not a handout. Well, and sometimes it gets extended to our organization that we don't need charity because we run our own enterprises and are self-sustaining. And the reality is, as a nonprofit charitable organization, anybody that gives us a charitable gift allows us to build our capacity to serve more people, but our enterprises then underwrite operational expenses. So we don't have to go to the community and play a violin and say, by the way, now that you've helped us build this new campus, if you don't give us more money, we're going to go out of business. And so we need you to sustain our operations. We're not looking for sustaining cash. We're looking for philanthropic investors that want to help us build capacity so we can lift people up through new educational and enterprise locations.
Mm-hmm. Makes a lot of sense. What would you say is the biggest challenge right now that Goodwill Middle Georgia is facing as a business or as a nonprofit?
It's the same that most companies are dealing with. It's the talent void. Even though we're in the talent development business, we've had a challenge. Everything from entry level workers for the 1,000 employees we have a lot of those are entry level workers. So the void that we have to recruit entry level workers, as well as to try to get top innovative creative staff to fill executive positions as we continue to grow as an organization, and we're needing new talent to take us kind of to the next levels. And so I guess talent is probably the biggest void or challenge we have right now.
Is there anything creative you're doing as an organization to tackle that?
Well, one of the positions that we're recruiting for is a senior vice president of marketing. On the top of their to-do list will be to begin to help us with our brand awareness and a brand advancement. And part of that kind of brand initiative will be branding us as an employer of choice, especially to entry-level employees, because we offer to our employees, once they've been with us 6 months, and their dependents, free education and training, industry certification programs that cost nothing to them or their children to be able to advance their careers. And then we offer half-price tuition to all of our degree programs at Helms College, which means if they qualify for a Pell Grant, our tuition is low enough that they can graduate from college debt-free by being one of our employees. And so we're trying to brand ourselves as an employer of choice and saying that, you can come to Goodwill and grow your career, and then from here you can go anywhere. We're not interested in keeping all the great employees. We want to turn over them to fill the voids at other companies, and we want to be able to educate and train them. And so that's one initiative we have to try to recruit new talent.
That's incredible. I mean, that is an offering you don't find other places. So hear that, everyone. Goodwill, you can get education alongside work and a paycheck. It's pretty awesome. And I mean, it's great that you're doing that to help develop talent, for the greater talent pool, not just for yourself. Very mission driven. Now, a little bit more about you and your leadership. I'm curious, what's the biggest leap you've ever taken to step outside your comfort zone, and how did you grow from it?
So the biggest leap I've ever taken outside my comfort zone um, it probably was, us as a community-based nonprofit deciding to start a college. I think that was, a bit of a stretching goal that we're still, chipping away to make it more and more successful. But all of the hoops that you have to jump through to get, licensed in the state and then accredited by an accrediting body and then approved by the Department of Education and then learning all kinds of new compliance and requirements in order to stay in good standing. That was kind of a whole new world to adventure into back in 2007.
That sounds like a gigantic leap into the new. Wow. How did it feel doing that?
Well, it felt mostly as the right thing to do. I've always had a conviction that people have these amazing, seeds of talent and gifts inside of them, and to create an environment where people could be educated and they could water and grow those gifts and those talents and those strengths, and then use them to, have a sense of not only a dignity of a paycheck, but career advancement, and then to be able to take their families out of poverty and put them into, a living wage environment.
Mm-hmm.
That was the right, the right thing to do. Part of it that I think drove us to continue to overcome obstacles. And the Department of Education and other organizations didn't know how to interpret us because our accrediting body is the same one that accredits a lot of for-profit colleges. So, they were looking at us out of the corner of their eye, not quite knowing how to classify us. The Department of Education was looking down and saying, well, they're accredited by that group, but they're a nonprofit and they're seemingly a bunch of do-gooders. There was a lot of figuring out what box people could put us in, and we were unique because we were trying to create the best example of an experiential learning college in the country, because every one of our programs and schools has businesses that we're growing for applied learning. So those students will go from the classroom to the lab, then to our business enterprise for their applied learning before they ever get to a clinical or an externship stage of their education. Mm-hmm. So we want people, when they show up to those externships, to have already been there and done that, and then that allows them to rise to the top as cream of a new employer's talent pool.
And your businesses are a joke because I've eaten in one of your restaurants and it was delicious.
Edgar's Hospitality Group is, the applied learning hospitality network of restaurants and conference centers. We operate a private city club. We do food service contracts for Textron, EasyGo, feed 1,000 people a day. So all of those are different experiences that our hospitality culinary arts students can have to figure out what direction in hospitality would they like to go into for their career path.
Now, I always ask this because strong leaders all have had failures that they've learned from, but most people never talk about failure. And so people look up at great leaders as if they're perfect and they've never had to go through anything rough in their life, which is very often not the case. So I'm curious, what's your biggest failure and what did you learn from it?
I mean, I've got, probably so many failures. It's hard to pick one out that is and I learned a lot from Edgar Helms too, because in his life, he tried all kinds of things and most of them failed, but then the ones that were successful really were home runs. So I always tell the employees in Goodwill 101 and orientation that it's not how we fail, but it's how we recover that's important. It's the guest recovery experience that's important. So I think one of the failures was there were set aside contracts through the state of Georgia for organizations that serve people with disabilities. And we have very large contracts, Robins Air Force Base and Fort Gordon, where we have, 80% of our workforce have some type of severe disability, and they're cleaning 6 million square feet a day and doing shelf stocking. And so we were very skillful at doing large facilities management contracts. And there was a state set aside opportunity that came along to try to work with a for-profit organization that sold postage meters. And so we decided to become a franchise that would be specializing in working with government organizations at the state level to have a set aside postage meter contract to replace the 600-pound gorilla postage meter company that did all the state work, right? And this was back in the early 2000s, maybe late 1990s. And we spent quite a bit of, capital investment to set up the training area and to buy the equipment and to begin to get ready to bid on the contract. And the political forces out there didn't allow us to even get to first base. And so we ended up kind of writing that one off. But it would have been a kind of a new way to help people with disabilities to learn new skills. And I don't know how relevant postage meters are today compared to where they were in 1999. But so that was one that was a sour loss. So
If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
'18-year-old self. Oh my Lord. I think I would say, do your best to get to know successful people, ask them what their stories are, and do lots of listening to what you perceive that made them successful when you listen to their stories. Because people love to tell, especially when they get a little older in life, they love to tell stories, right? And so, so make yourself available to hear those stories. I think I would have advised my young self to do that instead of trying to come up with so many nifty ideas on my own. So,
What's one lesson your career has taught you that you think others should learn at some point in their life?
well, I mean, it's probably the old lesson that, millennials probably are much better at this than the workaholic folks that are a little older, is that, don't marry your job too intensely, because you may lose things like your marriage. So that I think, the whole work-life balance, trying to figure out how to savor life more often instead of, and how to, celebrate as opposed to moving on to the next mountain to climb without pausing in between.
I like that. Celebrate. So in talking about advice you would give, from a career to yourself, are there any books or podcasts or anything you'd recommend to my listeners on leadership or life that you think they should know about?
We read as an executive team, my team that I work with, 2 books by Gregory Boyle. And the first book is called Tattoos on the Heart. And the second book is called Barking to the Choir. And both of those books have wonderful quotes from all kinds of philosophers and business leaders by a priest that runs the largest gang ministry in the world in Los Angeles called Homeboys.
Huh.
And so he tells these amazing humorous stories that, you know, talk about how he's trying to help people become their best and how we can learn from people who have barriers and challenges. They have more to teach us than almost any other kind of class of people. And one of the take homes too was being in the helping profession, that I need to show up with people, to be with people on the margins, and not act like I'm going to fix them or heal them, but how are they going to fix and heal me? And what are they going to speak to me that I can hear to change my life? And then that will change their ability to be open to me working, you know, with them in partnership, in kinship is what he likes to say.
Very interesting. Brent, I will have to look those books up because I've not heard of either of them myself. So,
Yeah.
Just in the Heart, and the other one, again, my dog was really relevant a minute ago with barking.
Barking to the Choir.
Barking to the choir. I always ask people, you know, a lot about getting out of their comfort zones, hence the name of the program. But who is somebody that influenced you to get out of your comfort zone when you were younger? And what did you, how did they inspire you? What did you learn from them?
I think it was probably my grandfather, maternal grandfather, Willard Wernette. And I actually have quotes from him around our properties. One of the quotes that I have says, put your signature in the corner of everything you do. And another one says, do your job and then do a little bit more. So the stories that he kind of told me as a young boy about his adventures, taking a train to Alaska when he was 16 and both of his parents had died. And the adventures he had in Alaska always had a moral to every story he told me. He was called the Tin Kid. He actually did, his father had a sheet metal business, so he learned how to make little tin ovens for dog sleds. And so people out there would be able to have their little, you know, oven to take with them out there in the tundra, frozen tundra. And so but the stories that he told me were all about adventures, about new opportunities, about building things. He helped the Episcopalian bishop to build a hospital. So all these stories got me out of my comfort zone of being brought up as a suburban young lad on a lake in Michigan, where everybody, you know, kind of grew up and stuck around and didn't travel much. And so I think he inspired me probably more than anybody in my youth to see the world and, you know, to try new and interesting things that would help me to grow as a person, but to also to make the world better than when I found it, the way I found it.
Yeah, it sounds very inspiring. He definitely tried some adventurous things too.
Yes.
What's one question you wish I would have asked that I didn't?
Well, you asked a lot of good questions. Which one of your venues would you tour somebody through if you wanted them to experience your mission? Maybe that one.
That's a good question. So now I'll ask you for the answer.
So I would probably take somebody on a tour of I'm in Macon at our campus today, but I would take them to our Augusta campus, and I would tour them from the donation drive-through, where we're collecting things and processing those things and teaching people very good organizational skills and production skills. We do 5S quality training and all this stuff. And so we would take them from there and show them the pathway that the employees could take from an education and career development into hospitality, healthcare. And I would take them through the educational areas that those employees could go into. And I would take them to the applied learning venues like Edgar's Grill, where they would work in their fourth quarter of their culinary degree to do front of the house and back of the house applied learning. And then I would sit with them and have lunch and have the Helms College students tell their individual story to the guest and why the education at Helms College was helping them to better themselves and to create a career path.
And having done at least part of that tour myself a few years back, it's a pretty incredible experience. That's one of the reasons I asked you to be on today. I think Goodwill does some really amazing things, particularly what you're doing in Middle Georgia with the college that people don't know about. They just think of Goodwill as the place where they drop off things they don't use anymore. And there's so much behind the scenes and beyond that is happening to support people developing their careers. So I wanted to make sure there was a shot to really highlight the great things you guys are doing and the leadership you are bringing to the table. I'm about out of time, but I do want to ask you one more question in the spirit of the getting out of our comfort zone. What is something you would like to try in business or in life that you haven't yet?
I think that, I would like to do, in life, I would like to travel, to countries that I've never been, to the Far East. I've never been to Africa. I mean, those are two countries I'd like to adventure to, continents. And then I would like to help other people start a branch of Helms College in their part of the world. Those are probably a business thing and a personal thing.
Oh, I'm with you. Africa sounds like fun, and I love your vision of expanding on what you've built. That's very exciting. And I look forward to seeing more of it as it continues to occur. So thank you, Jim, for being with us today.
Well, thank you for letting me tell the story behind the store.
Awesome. Well, everyone, Goodwill Middle Georgia, get out there, donate, support. You now know what it's all about, and there's so much great stuff behind it. So thanks.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure today.